Good afternoon, walkers. Today we are at Copan Ruinas, which is the ruins of Copan, an ancient Mayan city outside of Copan Ruinas, Honduras. Those squawking you hear are actually macaws that are all over the place here. They have little feeding stations that encourage them to come in. They're absolutely gorgeous. You can get pretty close to them, but only while they're eating, which they're not doing right now. You can see one up there, maybe, in the tree. There are also blackbirds called grackles, which are much bigger than the grackles we have in the States. We took a tour this morning, well, not really this morning, until about noon, and it was well worth the money. Learned a lot. I'm not going to bore you with any of the details, or not many of the details of that tour, but I am going to walk you around and see some of the sights. This is one of the most southern Mayan kingdoms, Copan, and it basically crashed around 900 AD. The last king was called Early Dawn, and I don't know the Mayan name for that. He told us, but I can't remember that. Below all the grass, about 30 inches, is actual paving stones. And they left it covered to protect it. This box down here below us is put there to help it's a macaw nesting box. Go over here and show you some of the, get a close-up of some of the carvings, pictographs. This low one is a turtle, symbolizing life and death. It has two heads, one on this side, the skull, which symbolizes death, and one on the other. These were painted red. Apparently the temples were all painted red, and they found somewhere, one of these vaults, a bunch of pots full of liquid mercury that they used in the paint. Must have been pretty short-lived painters. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and about 88 degrees. The grounds are very well maintained. Leaves are raked up every day. It's nice and clean. I would recommend getting a guide. It's $25 or 700 lempiras. But they can explain a lot of the iconography and the glyphs and a lot of the stuff that's just not well labeled or not thoroughly labeled or as efficiently labeled as you would get if you were to go around reading it. We're going to head over to the ball court. If you're wondering what kind of camera I'm using for this 360 tour, it's a GoPro Fusion. Thus I have a case in my hand. I didn't notice this thing earlier. It's like a face of some sort. You can see the trees growing out of the ruins all over the place. This is the ball court. The trees apparently actually help stabilize the ruins and help preserve them, which is kind of the opposite of what I would have thought. So this is the ball court we're walking into, and I guess they scored by having the ball hit one of these, I believe, jaguar heads. And up there to the left, we see what our guide Tony Rivers called the changing rooms. We're going to pop up there real quick. I mentioned the Macaws earlier, and apparently they were a symbol of destruction, and every 52 years they were supposed to come back and destroy the world to be rebuilt. And the word they used is Papangao, which is similar to popinjay. I never really knew that. Like a turtle head there. These trees are absolutely massive. In fact, the whole site is massive. They had every so often, and this city was 400 years lived, 16 kings and queens. They would build a new temple on top of an old temple. Over here are a set of steps that are also a series of, each step has a bunch of hieroglyphics on it which depict the history of the city. And I think there's 2,000 hieroglyphs on here. some of which have been taken to one of the museums up in Boston. The tent canvas is here to protect it from the weather. I think the favorite true trees are this one up at the top with the massive roots. I mean, just incredibly huge roots, sort of holding everything together and holding them in, all the stones. At the first area we stopped in, the rock around the side, that was all one big amphitheater where the king would speak. And I'm not sure, but possibly do sacrifices, although that might have been up here. My other favorite tree is this one over here. And that's the national, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the national tree of Costa Rica. But it's probably 100 feet tall and 100 feet wide. Down here is a drainage tunnel to let water during rainstorms flow out to the Copan River, which they've actually rerouted to protect the site. It was flooding every year and taking a little bit of the city with it. There, at this site, there are several different places you can visit. You pay a little bit extra for each one. It's not cheap. Family of four, I think we paid, I don't know, close to $150 for everything, plus a guide. But the guide was totally worth it. The main site is totally worth it. We're going to do the sculpture museum a little bit later. I would say the tunnel is possibly not worth it. Very humid, not a lot to them, and they weren't actually made by the Mayans. They were made by archaeologists to get to the lower covered up temples. Pardon the wind noise. many of the pieces that are unprotected art out here are reproductions, the originals of which are in the Sculpture Museum. This is an altar. Not a whole lot to it, unless you're the one being sacrificed. Speaking of sacrifice, the royalty were the few that were allowed to sacrifice, and their sacrifice is titled drawing their own blood and then burning it in the smoke, sending the smoke to heavens. The females were allowed to, and they were the only ones allowed to do this, cut their tongues and lips, I believe, and that was how they got the blood. The men could do their face, their fingers, and their genitals at the base of the shaft, not to be too graphic, which sounds absolutely horrible. In my viewpoint. I forget that I'm 6'6", and so I hold the camera up around my head level, and it may be a little disorienting for other people, so I'll try to hold it down a little lower, the average person's height. This is the temple of Early Dawn, the last Copan king, and there are tunnels here where you can get into the tunnels. Over here is the Jaguar Tunnel, which is longer, and over there is the Rosa Lia, I think it stands for the pink room or something. And here's one fresco. It's not a fresco, it's a carving. Doves ahead of us. It's pretty interesting that you can climb all over these things, not all over them, but a lot. Now we're going to go back and look over the ball court and steps area. Down that way, down that hill, is the Copan River, as I mentioned. And also in that direction is a site, Sepulturas, which is where the poor people lived, apparently. We're going to skip that one. coming over here to show you this head. These are the massive roots over here to the right that I was talking about, that my favorite tree, which I guess is odd to have on having spent less than 6 hours here. Our tour lasted about 2.5 to 3 hours, mainly because we were slow. And I think that's going to conclude our tour here of Copan. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to take another city walk of the town itself, which is a tiny little Honduran town, but pretty neat, colorful, quiet, and beautiful. So check in for that and for other towns as we make our way through Central America. Come back next time. Give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see. And tell your friends.